Right, well today marks the largest reset of the New Zealand science system in 30 plus years, with reforms which will boost the economy and benefit the sector. I'm actually quite excited about it. The reform will maximise the value of the $1.2 billion of taxpayer money that we already put into the science sector each year, creating a much more dynamic science innovation tech system that can respond to the priorities and particularly emerging technologies. This report actually follows the comprehensive report that Sir Peter Gluckman and the Science System Advisory Group completed, and it's helped inform our decisions that are announced today. I want to thank Sir Peter and his team for their work. What they will do, they will transform the current 7 Crown Research Institutes into 3 public research organisations, or PROs, focusing on bioeconomy, earth sciences and health and forensic sciences together. And they will establish as well an advanced technology pro to deliver research capability and commercial outreach around technologies such as artificial intelligence, also a favourite, quantum and synthetic biology, and definitely a favourite. We will also be developing a national policy for managing intellectual property and IP for science and innovation tech researchers, so that they can actually benefit from their work other than a salary. So this is actually about driving the commercial growth of this country and helping them to become much more entrepreneurial. And we will be establishing a new agency, Invest NZ, as the government's one-stop shop for foreign direct investment to help the government reach its goal of doubling exports by 2034. And this is going to be led by my very capable colleague, Todd McClay. And we'll be establishing a Prime Minister's Science, Innovation, Technology Advisory Council to provide strategic direction, oversight of the system, advise on priorities, stop foolish decisions that have occasionally been made, and to identify the very biggest opportunities to leverage science, innovation, technology focused on economic growth. So these are great outcomes, and we will be just establishing Callaghan Innovation, and we will be moving its most important functions to other parts of the system. This work that we've also been doing will be in conjunction with the overturning of the effective 30-year ban on gene technology in this country. This will unleash enormous opportunities for our science sectors and also for New Zealanders, whether it's in the primary industry sector, the health sector, and it's really going to be something that's going to help us on climate change issues as well. So this shows that this government sees science, innovation, tech as a way to transform the economy and to harness our country so that we are far better able to pay for all the things that we all want for all New Zealanders. The changes announced today are extensive, but they will ensure a system that generates maximum value for the economy and therefore for all New Zealanders. It's taken time to get it right, and I'm just really confident about the way in which we're moving. I'm delighted that the incoming Science and Innovation Technology Minister, Dr. Shane Reti, will also be able to drive this along with the universities, because that is really important to have those together if at all possible. And just so that everybody's aware, Dr. Reti isn't just the person for the job to take over this. He's previously been an assistant professor in the Infometrics Research Division of Harvard Medical School. He has co-authored a number of, in fact 12, published papers on using AI technologies. He's also been an advisor for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, promoting New Zealand companies in the Middle East. And we know we've got the right people for the job. Really excited about it, and thank you, Prime Minister, for your enormous support and for that of the Cabinet. Thank you.
Well, Prime Minister, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Invest New Zealand offers us an exciting opportunity to find international investment to bring in to grow the economy, to drive innovation, to create new businesses and help the government deliver the core infrastructure that the country needs. You know, we compete on the world stage very well when it comes to trade, but we don't do as well as we need to when it comes to foreign direct investment. Our foreign direct investment stock sits at about 38% of GDP, compared to Ireland at 250% of their GDP. Last year, our FDI grew by about 5% compared to Singapore, which grew by 31%. When I am out on the world stage as Trade Minister, I am meeting people and companies or from sovereign wealth funds that have interest in New Zealand, but they say they find it harder than they hoped it would be to invest here, and that they would like help and assistance. New Zealand will be incubated by NZTE during the course of this year. New Zealand Trade Enterprise already has an investment function, but we have seen that the skill set that you need to help New Zealanders export more is very different than the skill set you need to bring investment into New Zealand, and we will be looking for a dedicated team of experienced New Zealanders in New Zealand around the world to work with us, people that can do deals. We should be measured on our success of the deals that are done, not just the brochures that are produced and sent out to the rest of the world. The final thing that I would say, and that's I want to thank I want to thank New Zealand Trade and Enterprise for the work that they've done. They are good at this, but New Zealand needs a single-minded focus both on how we export and how we bring foreign direct investment in. It is how we grow the economy, we create better jobs and higher paying jobs for New Zealanders, and it's how our government gets to provide the services Kiwis deserve.
Well, listen, can I just firstly thank Judith for her leadership getting these changes set up in place. Her and I have had a great passion for this area. We've worked together very closely over a number of years now on it, and I hope you feel really proud of actually what's been delivered today, because it's actually a foundation I think will set New Zealand up incredibly well. And I want to say, Todd, thank you for all your great work in the last year. I don't think New Zealand's been as well served by a Trade Minister in a very, very long time, and the way that you're working and the hustle that you've got, and we're just grateful that you're in country today for the announcement. I think you now get a sense of why I wanted to see science, innovation, technology and universities come together under the leadership of Shane Retty, and why I think he's the perfect person to take it forward from here and build on what Judith has created. And likewise, why I think Todd is the right person to actually put a much sharper focus, a dedicated focus on attracting foreign direct investment. With that, happy to take your questions.
In the wake of the Christchurch earthquake, John Key launched Invest Christchurch. Are you copying his homework?
No, this is really work that I've done over probably last 20 years, and Judith and I have talked a lot about it. I did a lot of this work and thinking when I was outside of politics as well, is that if you go look at other 5 million people countries, other small advanced economies, as Sir Peter Gluckman would say, and you ask the question, why are they fundamentally wealthier than New Zealand? Because it doesn't make sense that they could or should be. You have to come back to the core elements and the core foundations of why they've been able to drive greater levels of economic productivity. So the model that both myself and Judith have been very influenced by is certainly Ireland. I went, as you remember, in opposition, spent 2 days just with that express purpose of understanding exactly this, the investment attraction piece, as well as their export growth piece, as well as how their science, innovation and technology sector all hangs together. So we've borrowed a lot from the Irish model and applied it into the New Zealand context.
Did you look at Invest Christchurch and how successful it was, and can you tell us how successful that model was?
Look, it wasn't. No, I was more interested in a national solution, and for me, my stimulation came from Ireland.
But surely if there's an example of it being used in New Zealand before, if there's an example of it being used in New Zealand before, surely you'd look at that to see if it was successful or not.
I'm well aware of Invest New Zealand. I've worked with them for many, many years, for the last decade or so. But what I'm saying is I'm wanting a national system of investment attraction. This is very normal when you look at a Singapore, when you look at an Ireland, when you look at an Israel, when you look at a Denmark. This is the structure which we know works. And so we spend a lot of time actually with the Irish. We actually had them involved in some of our science sector work. And importantly, we spent a lot of time, I spent 2 full days immersed in it, having studied it before I arrived there. So, this is about getting it right for New Zealand. And what we know, as I said in my speech, is there's a heap of money out there in the world. It's a wash.
But do we actually have projects ready to go?
Yeah, we do.
Like what?
Can I help with that one, Prime Minister? Look, this is actually about getting money into the science and innovation areas and the great research, and the Prime Minister referred to some of that in his speech, about the research that's going on in places like plant and food research, where people have developed, our scientists have developed an apple tree that can be planted, flower and fruit within a year, as opposed to 6 or 7 years it is now. They're not allowed by the current laws to do anything with that. So overseas people are going to pick that up, take it off, invest in it, and they're going to be ending up sending us the result of it. Now that's the sort of ridiculous situation we're in. So that's the sort of difference. I mean, we're not talking about rebuilding a city. This is about the economy, and it's going forward. And you look at the the advanced technology area that we've talked about and what we're doing there. This is like taking AI and making it into something that's actually helped grow the economy. So I look at Singapore, They had an AI Institute in 2017. I tell you, there's not many people alive who knew what AI was in 2017, but it's that driving of tech and science. That's what we've got to do. This is not building houses, this is not rebuilding cities, this is actually building
roads,
economy.
though, isn't it?
Yeah, so just on the investment side, what's been very obvious as every visit I've done internationally, I always take time out and spend it introducing New Zealand to investors. And what's been obvious to me is that they are very, very open to actually coming and investing here in New Zealand. They haven't had a government that has said we're open for business, we would welcome your capital coming to this country, but we're making that very clear. We've talked a lot about some big public infrastructure that we need to get co-invested with in foreign pools of capital, domestic pools of capital. Think about public-private partnerships on roads of national significance, other core public infrastructure we need. But we've also identified there's a real opportunity for many of our startups and our who are doing renewables, advanced aviation, advanced agri-tech, that actually want to be able to partner with capital to actually help them grow, to actually take their company and their business to the next level. And that's the Irish experience as well. And then ultimately, I think there's an opportunity for iwi to work with international capital too. Sorry, Mikey.
This dedicated team, will it fly overseas to broker these deals, or will they simply be Wellington bureaucrats?
No, I expect them to be building rapport and relationships with all of the sovereign wealth funds and the big pension funds around the world. It is a different skill set. You need to be able to go into a room. Todd and I had dinner, a lunch recently, last week actually, in the UAE. And, we were sitting down with people who have $900 billion US in one sovereign wealth fund, $350 billion US in another, $250 billion in another. And yet just those three sovereign wealth funds in one country, and none of that money is sitting here in New Zealand. So there's a huge opportunity for us to make the case, which we've been doing over the last 12 months, which has given us confidence now to create this dedicated unit. And importantly now, I want a different profile of people in that unit to actually be able to build those relationships and to be able to convert them.
Is there an expectation from overseas investors that they can also invest in property, set up some sort of, put their roots down essentially in New Zealand?
Yeah, I mean, there may well be, and there's a difference in position between national and New Zealand first, but I just say to you, that's not the showstopper here. The showstopper here is actually, sovereign wealth funds who actually need to deploy that money across a global economy in 195 countries, and we haven't been getting enough of it.
That would be a consideration. So where are those?
But I just say to you, when you're dealing with billions of dollars and high hundreds of millions of dollars are coming out of funds, it's quite a different dynamic than just high net worth individuals. And it's an important part of it, but it's a piece.
Some of those big companies
Sure.
will see New Zealand as an attractive place to perhaps buy a holiday home or something like that. So where are those discussions at with New Zealand first?
Again, we have a difference of opinion between the two parties, but I'm just saying to you, it's a very small part of a whole wide system of being able to encourage investment in New Zealand.
So do you have the project ready to go?
Sorry.
Look, what's the point of setting up an agency if you haven't liberalised the foreign investment tests and the foreign investment legislation?
Well, we are working on new Overseas Investment Act legislation, which we've been working through in Cabinet in the back half of last year. We have more to say about that very shortly.
Do all the coalition partners, are you all in sync on that particular issue?
Well, we're a coalition government. We have good conversations inside, but I can tell you all of us are very much in sync about growing New Zealand and attracting more investment into the country. Sorry, Ben.
How much confidence can sovereign wealth funds have when the last big deal that was done was to do the rail link, and that was blocked by New Zealand First, the Quebec...
Well, I'm not going to go back into revisionist history. What I'd say to you is, going forward from here, all parties in the coalition, and frankly, myself as Prime Minister, are determined to get investment into this country. We know that it can transform a lot of what we need to do. You've all seen New Zealand's relative performance in the OECD in terms of attracting foreign direct investment. It's been abysmal. And part of it is from the top, you have to have a government that's externally oriented and open to actually welcoming that capital here. So we will get those settings right. And as I said, part of it's legal, but actually you've got to put the institutions in place, because in my conversations, the reality is the sovereign wealth funds have very little literacy of New Zealand and actually what's available to invest in here. We now have a government finally that's open for that investment, and as I said, the work now in the coming year is to make sure we actually join that up.
What is ready to go?
Sorry, Joe Moore.
Given the focus on science, are you going to appoint a new chief science advisor?
Yes, I will. I've been wanting to get through the science sector review that Peter Gluckman and Judith were leading, and I wanted to get these settings right because this is what we intended to happen, and I want it to be much more scaled and set up in the right way and give us the right foundational infrastructure and mechanisms, as you said, with the Prime Minister's Science Advisory Council, and we'll make an appointment in due course. Sorry, Jamie.
On mining, are you comfortable with mining on conservation land?
What we've said is there are some, mining in national parks, no go, but there is marginal land across New Zealand that we should be saying yes to. And we don't need to, it's what I was trying to say in my speech. We've got a culture of no. We haven't got a culture of yes, and yet we don't have the luxury to turn off growth. And I get the mining sensitivity, I understand that, but the reality is you need lithium to power an EV, you need coal to power a solar panel, you need a bunch of critical minerals to fund, to make data centres work. And so, part of it is actually saying where there's opportunity, we're gonna say yes to stuff. And I appreciate that won't be everyone's cup of tea. I appreciate people will have different views on that. But we're not here to debate and discuss anymore. We're here to get things done and grow the country. Sorry, I just finished, Jamie.
Are you concerned that encouraging more mining might tarnish our green image, which would therefore be counter to trying to drive up tourism?
No, I mean, my conversations over the last 12 months are pretty, people are pretty, they understand we are in the top 5 countries with respect to our renewable mix of electricity generation. We're in a very, very good place there. But what we're not going to do is we're going to turn off growth in this country. We can deliver both. And actually, when you want to make a clean transition, think about the Norways, think about Australia, think about many other countries around the world. You need critical minerals, and that is a critical part of what we've got to do going forward.
Would you say
If we want to build more roads,
transition?
which we want to build more roads, I want quarries more available to where those products are needed, where those roads are needed. So there's a big opportunity mining, and I get it. There'll be a lot of people saying, "Yep, I don't, I'm mining." They've got a different set of views, but I'm sorry. When we've been in recession for 3 years, we are going to grow.
So why don't you go to the New Zealand Sovereign Wealth Fund and the $200 billion worth of sovereign assets here that want to invest in?
Well, I just say to you, we've got a big program of work over the coming year. We have to, you're right, we have to be able to use and access domestic pools of capital as well as international pools as well.
Can I just ask on behalf of a couple of colleagues on other topics?
Sorry, Luke, I'll go to Luke first.
Judith Combs,
Yep.
the previous government was very good at doing kind of bureaucratic rearrangements.
Yeah.
Is
that what they were doing?
Well,
Luke?
what do you think it is about your particular rearrangement of
okay.
the science sector
Fantastic.
that is going to actually result in better results?
Thank you for that great question. Hey, one of the things that's been happening this last year is that the Crown Research Institutes have been looking at their staffing, and they've been knowing that they are going to have to right size, and they knew that there was change coming. So much so that every one of the Crown Research Institute chairs is supportive of what we're doing. And so that's the difference. So they've already been right-sizing anyway, and they've been getting themselves ready for this. So they're excited about this, and that's a big difference. So we've all seen as well, we didn't put everything together in one, unlike the Science System Advisory Group actually suggested just the one public research organisation, because we know that people like to have a bit of competition, they like to be able to benchmark themselves against others, and we also think it's a much better opportunity for them to be able to work together and to get some of those right sizing. So I actually think this is going to be hugely fun for the sector, and they're going to, they've taken the opportunity to get the people they want.
And when you expect it to be fully complete and operational?
Well, there's a timeline attached to it which says this is the way we see things processing. So all the staff have now been told, the CRIs have the chairs, and the boards have been very much involved in this, the chief executives anyway. I think you're going to see some big changes in the next few months, and that will be, of course, under Dr. Shane Retty's leadership.
Sorry, Joe. Oh, sorry, is there any more questions for Joe?
What's the rationale behind closing Callaghan Innovation?
Oh, look, I think Callaghan, and now first off, I want to say, really feel for the fact that there'll be a lot of concern for the staff in Callaghan Innovation. There's about 360 staff there. But what's actually happened is, when we look at the background, this was supposed to be an innovation sector, or institute. Unfortunately, it had to take over the Gracefields Innovation Quarter, which is basically the old Industrial Research Limited thing. They had to keep the staff from the Industrial Research days. They actually never really had much of a chance to become focused entirely on new technologies. So we think it's better and cleaner to actually close it and actually get what's going to be in place instead, absolutely focused on new technologies like quantum and AI and gene tech. So, I think it had its day, but it's also known that this is going to be happening.
How many New Wales owners of
So there'll be people, obviously some will be employed elsewhere in the sector, in the CRI, or the PROs as they will be, but you'll also find that some will be picked up in the private sector or universities. No, that's something really for them, and it's still got to work through that process. But Callaghan is closing very soon.
And then we'll come to Joe.
The Marsden Fund,
Sorry?
which does include the change of social, economic and environmental change.
Sorry, what was that?
The Marsden funding cut.
Yeah.
What was the decider in terms
Oh,
of
well,
cutting that fund?
Well, it was to do with the fact that that should be about science funding. We get $1.2 billion of funding through the science sector from the taxpayers, and I expect, and I'm sure that Dr. Reti, who will take over tomorrow, will expect that that funding will go to science. We have no money to spend on nice-to-haves. This country has had too much of that under the previous regime, and we're not having it anymore.
What's
So,
the
yeah.
examples of that? Sorry, you say it wasn't
Oh,
about
there's
science.
some pretty egregious examples. I chose not to go into too much detail because the researchers involved, they often put their research applications in depending on what the previous government had changed the settings to. And they know exactly, and I'm not going to, they know exactly what the answers are. Don't waste science money on stuff that doesn't matter. Thank you.
Let me give you an example,
Yeah.
Mikey. I think mapping Buddhist law in Asia for $600,000 is probably as worthy as a piece of research as that may be in humanities research. Doesn't help us do the task that I talked to today, which is driving and unleashing economic growth. So, with that, Joe?
Yesterday, you and Nicola Willis outlined what you were going to do around tourism, bringing more visitors in, opening
Yes.
up the Chinese market, going back to pre-COVID levels. This morning, you immediately had the Queenstown Mayor come out, a morning report, very scathing, saying we don't have the infrastructure, the government's going to have to put money in if they want this to happen, the roads, the pipes, etc. How are you going to get buy-in from the local governments, councils, who you've previously obviously been critical of, who seem to be very no and not very yes, which is what you were trying to encourage?
Well, there's several things going on. The first and foremost is there is a big investment going into South Island infrastructure, including a roading package specifically for Queenstown, which we've already announced. But the bigger opportunity is actually what we call the city and regional deals. And actually, as the councils, particularly that working often with their adjacent councils, thinking about a sub-region of New Zealand, come forward, we're expecting them to say, what do they think are the most pressing things that over the next 10 years actually would enable this region to grow faster? And so we need that sort of sense of strategic planning to be very quickly framed up. So for a place like Queenstown, I get it. There's been challenges in the past around accommodation for workers, there's roading and infrastructure challenges as a result. But what we need is actually central and local government to work together in a partnership through the construct of a city or a regional deal that identifies that critical infrastructure to support the growth that we want to see.
I get that there's plans there, but as we know in New Zealand, and I know you'll say that you're going to do it faster, but infrastructure takes time in New Zealand, and Nicola Willis is very clear that she's hitting go on the floodgates on tourism as quickly as possible.
We are.
And ratepayers in Queenstown are the ones who are going to be the brunt
No,
of that.
no.
So what is your message to them to assure them that you're not going to have people living in cars like you did in Queenstown last time, and that that is not going to be a repeat situation?
Well, I just say to you, I've watched this country talk about an RMA reform for many, many years, actually almost 18 years. And I think you saw last year in the space of 12 months that we actually shocked the system, broke the system with fast track. I told you today that we're actually going to have legislation in the House this year on our final RMA solution because we're moving with pace, and we can move with pace. We've got work already and frameworks already articulated to local government around the city regional deals. We have more to say about that through the course of this year as well. But we are not going to apologise because this country desperately needs growth. And that's the point. We are doing more than ever before to make sure we have a 30-year infrastructure plan. We have city regional deals that are framed up for 10 years joining central and local government together. And importantly, we're powering up our sectors to say yes, because actually that's the stuff that people actually want to know. Go talk to some of the businesses, as I have in Queenstown, about what's it been like when we've had suppressed tourism numbers. Go to other countries around the world and ask the question, why have they bounced back to 120% of pre-COVID levels and yet we haven't? And so we were slow coming out of the gates. We lost a lot of our wholesale relationships in tourism. I want that turned on big time internationally, and I want to be able to welcome visitors here. We can manage value and volume, we can manage regional dispersal, and we can manage seasonality, but we can manage that, I think, really well.
Prime Minister, on another topic, drowning stats out.
Sorry, let's go to the gentleman.
I just want to ask if you're looking forward to Ratana tomorrow, and what will your message be?
Look, Ratana is a pretty special day. It's not deeply political. It's also a good chance to, I really enjoy Ratana. I've been going, as you know, for many years, and my message will be, really about how do we move forward as a country a little bit around how do we make sure that we respect the treaty, how do we actually respect each other. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything, but it actually means that we should still be very focused on the goal of making New Zealand better.
Drowning statistics.
Sorry?
Have you decided where you're going to be?
There's a number of opportunities, and we'll confirm that closer to time.
Drowning.
It's only 2 weeks away.
There's a number of reasons why we don't do that, but we will confirm those shortly and as soon as we can.
Drowning statistics out today show that there were 72 deaths in New Zealand last year. Would you consider...
Sorry, in what relation?
Drowning
yes.
stats. Would you consider, as a government, considering making life jackets compulsory on all watercraft?
Look, sorry, it hasn't been a topic of conversation or something that we've discussed in Cabinet at this point in time. I know there's been a number of members' bills around that. Actually, one of our National Caucus members has a bill in that regard. And I know Simon Watts was advocating very strongly for it as an MP in opposition as well. But look, I mean, we'll look at all that down course this week. Focus is economic development.
With all the mechanical issues with the ageing Cook Strait ferries in recent months, do we need a tug capable of towing in ocean waters, and what is the government's plan to ensure that people can be rescued next time one of the ferries breaks down on the strait?
Well, look, I mean, running a ferry company is no different from running a trucking company or an airline. It's a transport business, and you need to make sure that you've got good operational integrity and really good repairs and maintenance in place. And that means for Kiwi Rail, we expect them to maintain those ferries to the highest possible standard.
We're talking about the tugs, though, to save people if one of them breaks down.
And then, of course, like we have in other parts of our transport network as well, we need to make sure that we've got the right support and the right, for emergency management. And so those are decisions ultimately for the sector and for Kiwi Rail.
No, has Cabinet made decisions on that? Because $600 million was put aside in the budget to make decisions around emergency responses for the Cook Strait ferries breaking down. So has Cabinet yet made those decisions? We've been denied the information because the Cabinet is yet to make decisions.
Well, again, I'll just say to you, we'll make sure that they've got the safety pieces that is needed to make sure the ferries are operational. But that is a responsibility for Kiwi Rail, in the same way that it is to make sure that there is good emergency management for main freight or for Air New Zealand or any other company in the country.
Doesn't sound overly reassuring for anyone breaking down on the Cook Strait
I just
that
say
they'll
to
be saved.
I'm just asking Kiwi Rail run the ferries. They're expected to maintain those ferries to the highest possible standards. Yes, but they operate. We have an operational company, and I expect that CEO and that organisation to make sure they are maintaining those ferries, because the life of those assets is quite possible.